The evening sky over Sanctum Prime burned with 3 suns setting in sequence, painting the diplomatic quarter in shades of amber and crimson. Dr. Marcus Chen stood on the observation deck of the research center, reviewing data on his tablet. He had spent the last 6 months studying Velastran plant biology, work that seemed insignificant compared to the historic summit happening across the plaza. Queen Ashira of the Velastran Empire had arrived 3 days ago with her royal convoy. Marcus had glimpsed the procession from a distance, towering guards in crystalline armor, diplomatic vessels that gleamed like polished silver, and somewhere in the center, the queen herself, with her 3 daughters. The Velastrans were one of the oldest spacefaring races in the galaxy, their empire vast, and their technology legendary. Marcus returned his attention to his tablet. Politics and royalty were not his concern. He was a simple scientist, here to study cross-species botanical adaptation. The first explosion shattered that illusion. A massive fireball erupted from the royal landing platform, the shockwave rattling the windows of the research center. Marcus dropped his tablet and ran to the window. Below, chaos consumed the plaza. The Velastran convoy was under attack. Smaller explosions followed, systematic and deadly. Security forces rushed toward the scene. But whoever planned this attack had timed it perfectly. The royal guards were pinned down by sniper fire from the surrounding buildings. Smoke billowed from the burning vessels. Marcus's hands trembled. He should stay inside. He should let the professionals handle this. He was just a botanist, not a soldier. But then he saw movement in the wreckage, figures struggling against the flames. His feet carried him toward the stairs before his mind could object. He grabbed a fire blanket from the emergency station and ran outside into the smoke and heat. The security forces were still fighting the attackers. No one had reached the burning convoy yet. The heat intensified as Marcus approached. Velastran voices cried out in their musical language, words he had learned during his cultural training. He wrapped the blanket around himself and pushed through the twisted metal. Inside the main transport vessel, the scene was horror itself. Royal guards lay motionless, their armor scorched black. And there, in the center of the destroyed cabin, Queen Ashira knelt beside 3 small forms, her daughters. Marcus had seen images of the princesses in the diplomatic briefings. Princess Lyra, age 12 in human years, had been known for her questions about alien cultures. Princess Mira, age 9, had shown remarkable talent in mathematics. Little Princess Sarah, barely 5, had charmed every diplomat she met with her innocent curiosity. Now they lay still, their delicate features peaceful despite the violence around them. Queen Ashira held Sira in her arms, rocking slowly. Her pale blue skin had turned ashen gray, and her 4 eyes, usually bright with intelligence, were dim with shock. She did not seem to notice the flames creeping closer or the smoke filling the cabin. "Your Majesty," Marcus called in Velastran, his accent rough but understandable. "We must leave. The ship will collapse." The queen did not respond. She simply held her youngest daughter and rocked. Metal groaned above them. Marcus calculated seconds in his head. The support beams would not hold much longer. He could save himself. He should save himself. Instead, he moved forward and knelt beside the queen. "Please," he said softly in her language. "Your daughters would want you to live. Honor them by surviving." Something flickered in Ashira's eyes. She looked at Marcus as if seeing him for the first time. A human. A stranger. Offering her comfort in her own tongue. "I cannot leave them," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You carry them with you," Marcus said, placing his hand over his heart in the Velastran gesture of eternal memory. "Always. But you must walk forward now." The ceiling beam cracked with a sound like thunder. Marcus did not wait for permission. He gently took Sarah from the queen's arms, cradled the small princess carefully, and then helped Ashira to her feet. She moved like a puppet with cut strings, her grief a physical weight. They stumbled through the wreckage together. Marcus shielded the queen and her daughter's body from falling debris, using the fire blanket to protect them from the flames. His lungs burned with smoke, his arms ached, but he kept moving, Security forces met them at the exit, pulling them clear just as the transport vessel collapsed in a shower of sparks. Medics rushed forward, but Marcus did not release his burden until he could place little Sarah gently beside her sisters, whom other survivors had already carried to safety. Queen Ashira sank to the ground beside her daughters. She did not weep. Velastrans had no tears, but her body shook with silent sobs that needed no translation. Marcus stood nearby, unsure what to do. Around them, the plaza filled with security personnel, diplomats, and medical teams. But in this moment, the queen seemed utterly alone in her grief. He sat down beside her, not speaking, simply present. Hours passed. Officials came and went, asking questions Marcus could not answer. He learned the attack had been carried out by an extremist faction opposed to the peace summit. 12 Velastrans had died, including the 3 princesses. As dawn broke over Sanctum Prime, a tall Velastran official approached. His armor marked him as high-ranking, and his expression combined grief with something Marcus could not identify. "Human," the official said in perfect English. "Do you understand what you have done?" Marcus blinked, exhausted. "I helped the queen reach safety. You invoked the law of Soul Guardian," the official replied. "By saving her life in her darkest moment, by offering comfort when her own people could not reach her, you have become bound to her until she recovers her strength." He paused. "Whether we approve or not, you are now the Queen's sole guardian. Her life is your responsibility." Marcus looked at Queen Ashira, still kneeling beside her daughters as the first sun rose. He had entered a burning ship to save one life. He had no idea he had just changed the fate of an empire. The royal quarters occupied the highest floor of the diplomatic tower, a space designed to house monarchs and presidents from across the galaxy. Marcus had never imagined he would enter such a place, much less live there. Yet here he stood, a simple botanist surrounded by Velastran guards who watched his every movement with barely concealed hostility. "You will sleep in the adjacent chamber," Commander Veloth informed him, his tone cold. The tall Velastran officer had made his opinion clear from the start. "You will not disturb the queen unless absolutely necessary. You will not touch anything. You will not." "I understand," Marcus interrupted gently. "I am here to help, not to interfere." Veloth's expression suggested he doubted both claims. Inside the main chamber, Queen Ashira sat motionless by the window, staring out at nothing. She had not spoken since the funeral ceremony that morning. She had not eaten. She barely seemed to breathe. Marcus had attended the funeral, standing in the back while Velastran nobles delivered speeches about honor and legacy. Not one had mentioned the princesses by name. Not one had acknowledged the queen's pain. They spoke of duty and strength, and the continuation of the royal line. It had felt wrong to Marcus, though he dared not say so. Now, as evening fell, he approached the queen carefully. He carried a tray with water and simple food, nothing elaborate, nothing that would overwhelm. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "you should drink something." No response. Marcus set the tray on a nearby table and sat down in a chair across from her, maintaining a respectful distance. He did not push. He did not demand. He simply remained present. Minutes stretched into hours. The guards changed shifts. Still, Marcus sat. Finally, as the moons rose over Sanctum Prime, he spoke. "I had a sister once," Marcus said softly, more to fill the silence than expecting a reply. "Her name was Sarah. She was younger than me, always curious, always asking questions about everything." He smiled at the memory. "She joined a colony expedition to New Terra. There was an accident with the life support systems. She was 23. He paused, the old pain familiar but no longer sharp. "For months, I could not speak about her. People would offer condolences, and I would thank them and walk away. I thought if I did not talk about it, if I stayed busy with work, the pain would fade faster." Marcus looked at the queen, though she still did not meet his eyes. "I was wrong. The pain did not fade. It just became heavier because I carried it alone." Queen Ashira's hand trembled slightly, so slight that most would miss it. But Marcus noticed. "My mother finally sat me down," he continued. "She made me say Sarah's name, made me tell stories about her, made me remember not just her death, but her life. It hurt terribly. But slowly, it also helped. The pain became softer. Not gone, but bearable. Silence settled between them again. Marcus did not expect an immediate response. Grief had its own timeline. 3 days passed in similar fashion. Marcus brought food and water. The queen sometimes drank, rarely ate. He sat with her in silence or spoke quietly about small things, the weather, the gardens below, memories of his sister. He asked nothing of her. The Velastran advisors grew impatient. "This is unacceptable," Duke Theron declared during a meeting Marcus was required to attend. "The queen must address the council. The empire needs leadership, not a monarch who hides in grief." "She is not hiding," Marcus said, keeping his voice calm despite his rising anger. "She is healing." "Healing?" Theron's laugh was bitter. "She shows weakness. In our culture, a true leader rises above pain immediately. They honor the dead through strength, not sentiment." "Perhaps," Marcus said carefully, "true strength includes allowing yourself to feel pain before moving forward." The room fell silent. Several advisors looked offended. Commander Veloth appeared ready to physically remove Marcus from the chamber. But one elderly advisor, Lady Shimara, tilted her head thoughtfully. "The human speaks of human customs. We are Velastran. Our ways are different." "Are they better?" Marcus asked. The question shocked everyone, including himself, but he pressed on. "How many of you have lost someone you loved? How many of you were allowed to grieve, to speak their names, to remember them fully?" No one answered. "I thought so," Marcus said quietly. "I mean no disrespect to your culture, but I wonder if strength that denies pain is truly strength at all." That night, assassins came. Marcus had fallen asleep in the chair near the queen's window, exhausted from days of vigilance. A sound woke him, the faint whisper of a ventilation shaft opening. His mind raced. The main guards were outside the door. These intruders had found another way in. Marcus moved quickly and quietly to the environmental control panel he had studied during his first night here. The assassins would be adapted to Velastran's standard temperature, cool and dry. Humans preferred warmer conditions. He activated the climate controls and raised the temperature rapidly, increasing humidity simultaneously. 3 figures dropped from the ceiling vent, dressed in dark stealth suits. They moved toward the queen's sleeping alcove. Then they slowed. The heat was affecting them. Velastrans could not regulate body temperature as efficiently as humans in warm environments. Marcus slammed his hand on the emergency alert. Alarms blared. The assassins turned toward him, raising weapons. But they moved sluggishly now. The temperature had reached levels uncomfortable for Marcus but debilitating for them. Commander Veloth and his guards burst through the door. The assassins attempted to flee but collapsed before reaching the vent, overcome by heat exhaustion. As medics removed the unconscious intruders, Veloth stared at Marcus with new eyes. "You did not fight them," the commander said. "I am not a warrior," Marcus replied, "but I can think." For the first time, Veloth nodded with something approaching respect. Later, as calm returned, Marcus sat once more beside the queen. She had not woken during the attack. So deep was her exhaustion. But as dawn broke, she turned her head and looked directly at him. "Why do you stay?" she asked, her voice hoarse from disuse. "My own people doubt me." "Why does a human stranger remain?" Marcus met her four-eyed gaze steadily. "Because grief is not weakness, Your Majesty," he said. "It is love with nowhere to go. And you deserve time to find where it goes." Queen Ashira's expression did not change, but a single sound escaped her, the Velastran equivalent of a shuddering breath. It was the first crack in the wall of her pain, and Marcus understood that healing, finally, had begun. Morning light filtered through the tall windows of the royal quarters. For the first time in 2 weeks, Queen Ashira rose from her bed, without Marcus having to gently encourage her. She moved to the window and stood there, looking down at the gardens below. Marcus watched quietly from his usual chair, ready to help if needed but not wanting to intrude. "They had a favorite place," Ashira said suddenly, her voice soft. "In the palace gardens on Velastra Prime. A small grove where the shimmer leaf trees grow. Lyra would read there. Mira would solve mathematical puzzles in the dirt with a stick. And Sarah, her voice caught. Sarah would chase the light moths that live among the flowers. It was the first time she had spoken their names aloud. Marcus felt his heart tighten. He stood and walked to stand beside her, careful to maintain respectful distance. "Tell me more," he said gently. Ashira turned to look at him, confusion in her 4 eyes. "What purpose does it serve?" In my culture, we believe that speaking about those we have lost keeps them alive in our hearts," Marcus explained. "Every story, every memory, it honors who they were, not just that they died. Velastran tradition teaches differently," Ashira said. "We honor the dead through silence. Speaking of them is seen as dwelling in weakness." May I suggest something?" Marcus asked carefully. "What if we created a small memorial garden here? In these quarters? Nothing public. Nothing that violates your customs. Just a private place where you could remember them." Ashira was quiet for a long moment. "A garden? With plants from places they loved," Marcus said, warming to the idea. "I am a botanist. I could help you choose species that would grow here, that would remind you of them. Not to dwell in pain, but to celebrate their lives." The Queen considered this. Marcus could see the conflict in her expression tradition versus a desperate need to hold on to something of her daughter's. "The advisors would disapprove," she finally said. "The garden would be private," Marcus replied. "For you alone. No one else needs to know." Ashira nodded slowly. "Show me what you have in mind." Over the next week, Marcus worked with the Queen to design a small memorial space on the private balcony attached to her quarters. He requisitioned shimmerleaf seedlings from the botanical database, along with the luminous night flowers that Sira had loved, and the geometric puzzle plants that had fascinated Mira. As they worked together, Ashira began to talk. She shared stories Marcus had never heard, how Lyra had once sneaked into a diplomatic meeting because she wanted to understand alien customs, how Mira had corrected a famous mathematician's calculations at age 7, how Sarah had insisted on learning the word for friend in 17 different languages. Marcus recorded these stories on his personal device, with the Queen's permission. "So they are not forgotten," he explained. "So someday, when you are ready, others might know who they truly were." The garden grew slowly, carefully. Marcus showed Ashira how to tend the plants, explaining each species' needs. The work was simple, but meditative. The Queen's hands, which had trembled with grief, grew steadier as she watered and pruned. But beyond the peaceful garden, trouble gathered. Duke Theron requested an urgent council meeting. Marcus was not invited, but Commander Veloth, who had become less hostile after the assassination attempt, quietly informed him of what was discussed. "The Duke demands that the Queen either abdicate or remarry immediately," Veloth said, his expression troubled. "He cites the law of continuity. Without direct heirs, he claims the throne is vulnerable." "The Queen's daughters died less than a month ago," Marcus said, anger rising in his chest. "And he demands she remarry? It is not about marriage," Veloth explained. "It is about power. If the Queen abdicates, the Council chooses the next ruler. Theron has been building alliances. He would almost certainly be selected." Marcus understood. This was not about tradition or law. This was a political maneuver to seize the throne, while Ashira was vulnerable. "Does the Queen know?" he asked. "She received the formal notice this morning," Veloth confirmed. "She has 3 days to respond." Marcus found Ashira in the memorial garden, sitting among the growing plants. She held a datapad with the Duke's demands, but she was not reading it. She simply stared at the shimmerleaf seedlings. "They want me to forget," she said without looking up. "Not just my daughters. They want me to forget that I am a mother who lost everything. They want me to be only a queen again." What do you want?" Marcus asked, sitting beside her. Ashira was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "I want to honor my daughters. I want their deaths to mean something. But I do not know how." An idea formed in Marcus's mind. It was bold, perhaps too bold, But he had learned that sometimes the most human response was also the most powerful. "What if," he said slowly, "you addressed the council not as a queen pretending to be unaffected, but as a mother who lost everything and chose to continue? What if you showed them that acknowledging pain does not make you weak, it makes you real?" "That violates every Velastran custom," Ashira said. "I know," Marcus admitted. "But you asked how to make their deaths mean something. Perhaps it means changing how your people think about grief, about loss, about what true strength looks like." Ashira turned to look at him. "They would call it weakness. They might remove me from the throne anyway." "They might," Marcus agreed. "But they might also see a queen who refuses to pretend, who honors her children by being honest about loving them. And perhaps, just perhaps, other Velastrans who have lost loved ones and suffered in silence might find permission to grieve too." The queen stood and walked to the edge of the balcony. Below, the city of Sanctum Prime sparkled in the evening light. Somewhere out there, her people waited to see if their queen would break or bend. "Help me write it," Ashira said finally. "Help me find words that honor both my daughters and my throne." Marcus stood beside her. "I will help with everything I have." They worked through the night, crafting a speech that would either save the queen's reign or end it forever. Marcus drew on his knowledge of Velastran culture, while encouraging Ashira to speak from her heart. As dawn approached, they finished. Ashira read the words again, her expression unreadable. "This could change everything," she said. "Yes," Marcus agreed. "It could." The queen looked at the memorial garden, at the plants growing strong despite being so far from their native soil. "My daughters deserved a better galaxy," she said quietly. "Perhaps this is how I give it to them." 3 days later, Queen Ashira would stand before the Galactic Council, and she would speak words no Velastran ruler had ever dared to say. The Grand Council chamber was built to impress. Its ceiling stretched 5 stories high, decorated with crystals from 100 worlds. Representatives from dozens of species sat in tiered seats, all eyes focused on the central platform where Queen Ashira would speak. Marcus stood in the observation gallery, his hands gripping the railing. He had helped write the speech, but now the moment had arrived. Doubt crept into his mind. What if they had made a terrible mistake? What if this destroyed everything? Commander Veloth stood beside him, equally tense. "The Duke has positioned his supporters throughout the chamber," the Velastran officer whispered. "They will challenge her the moment she shows any weakness." "She is not weak," Marcus said firmly, though his heart raced. The ceremonial chimes rang. Queen Ashira entered the chamber. She wore traditional royal robes of deep blue. But she had made one change that shocked the gathered assembly. On her shoulder, she wore a small brooch, 3 interlocking circles representing her 3 daughters. It was a private family symbol, never before displayed in public. Duke Theron sat in the front row, his expression confident. He believed the queen would either announce her abdication or defend herself with traditional rhetoric about duty and strength. Either way, he thought he had won. Ashira reached the central platform. She did not use notes. She simply stood there, meeting the eyes of her people, and began to speak. "I stand before you as your queen," she said, her voice carrying through the vast chamber. "But I also stand before you as a mother who lost her children." The room stirred. This was not how these speeches began. 28 days ago, my daughters were killed by those who sought to disrupt the Peace Summit. Princess Lyra, who dreamed of visiting every world in the galaxy. Princess Mira, who could solve equations that baffled my advisors. Princess Sarah, who believed every stranger was a friend she had not yet met. Ashira paused. Marcus held his breath. "Velastran tradition tells me I should not speak their names in public, that I should honor them through silence and strength, that to acknowledge my pain is to show weakness." The queen's voice grew stronger. "I have followed these traditions my entire life, and I tell you now they are wrong." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Duke Theron stood, outrage on his face. "Your Majesty," he called out. "You dishonor our ancestors with such words." "I honor them by telling the truth," Ashira replied, turning to face him directly. How many Velastrans have lost loved ones and suffered alone because our culture demands they pretend not to hurt? How many children have watched their parents grieve in secret, learning that love must be hidden? How many of us carry pain we can never share? She looked around the chamber, her gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. A human taught me something these past weeks. Dr. Marcus Chen, my soul guardian, lost his sister years ago. He told me that grief is not weakness, it is love with nowhere to go. And he showed me that acknowledging pain does not make you less strong. It makes you honest. Marcus felt dozens of eyes turn toward him. He stood straighter, refusing to shrink from their scrutiny. I loved my daughters, Ashira continued, her voice breaking slightly, but not stopping. I loved them more than empires or thrones or traditions. And when they died, part of me died with them. I will not pretend otherwise. I will not dishonor their memory by acting as if their loss means nothing. Then you admit you are unfit to rule, Duke Theron shouted. A queen cannot be ruled by emotion. I am not ruled by emotion, Ashira said calmly. I am guided by it. There is a difference. She turned to address the full assembly again. Ashira said. Ashira said calmly. Ashira said. Ashira said. Ashira said. Calmly again. Ashira said calmly. Ashira said calmly. I propose that we honor my daughter's memory by building a future where no parent of any species must endure such loss. Where we work together to stop the extremism that killed them. Where we teach our children that feeling deeply does not make them weak. It makes them compassionate. She reached into her robes and pulled out a data crystal. I have here the preliminary framework for the Galactic Protection Initiative. A joint task force dedicated to preventing terrorist attacks like the one that killed my daughters. It will require cooperation between species, sharing of intelligence, and mutual trust. It will be difficult, but it will save lives. Marcus felt pride surge through him. They had discussed this idea during their late-night planning sessions. Ashira had taken it and made it her own, transforming personal tragedy into potential galactic change. This is your vision for honoring the dead? Duke Theron sneered. More bureaucracy? More committees? Our people need strength, not sentiment. Our people need both, a new voice rang out. Lady Shamara, the elderly advisor who had remained quiet during most debates, stood from her seat. I lost a son in the border wars, she said, her voice carrying unexpected power. For 40 years, I have not spoken his name in public. For 40 years, I have pretended his death did not break my heart. I followed our traditions exactly. She looked at Ashira. And I was wrong to do so. The Queen shows more courage in this moment than I have shown in decades. Another voice joined in. A younger Velastran representative stood. I lost my partner in a mining accident, she said. I was told to move forward, to be strong, to find another mate quickly. No one ever asked if I needed time to grieve. She turned to her fellow Velastrans. Perhaps our traditions serve us poorly in this regard. More voices rose. Not all Velastran representatives from other species shared their own experiences with loss, with grief, with the weight of pretending to be unaffected. The chamber filled with stories that had been held silent for years. Duke Theron watched his careful political maneuvering crumble. This was not supposed to happen. The Queen was supposed to appear weak, not inspire a galactic conversation about healing. This is chaos, he declared. The Council must vote on the Queen's fitness to rule. Very well, Ashira said calmly. Let us vote. But let the choice be clear. You can choose a ruler who will pretend to be invulnerable, who will suppress emotion, and demand you do the same. Or you can choose a leader who admits when she is hurt, who works to prevent others from suffering as she has, and who believes that true strength includes the courage to be honest. The vote was called. Marcus could not bear to watch. He closed his eyes, waiting for the result. When the announcement came, his knees nearly buckled. The Queen had retained her throne. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Duke Theron stormed from the chamber, his faction defeated but not destroyed. But in that moment, it did not matter. What mattered was the young Velastron who approached the platform after the session ended, tears streaming down her face in the way Velastrons rarely allowed themselves to show. "Thank you," she whispered to the queen. "Thank you for saying their names. For showing us it is allowed." Ashira embraced her. Breaking another tradition, monarchs did not embrace common citizens. But today, traditions were being rewritten. Marcus watched from the gallery as more people approached the queen, sharing stories, sharing grief, sharing hope. He had entered a burning ship to save one life. Now, he was watching an empire begin to heal. The weeks following the council speech brought changes to the Velastron Empire that no one could have predicted. Queen Ashira's honesty had opened a door that centuries of tradition had kept locked. Across Velastron worlds, people began speaking openly about loss for the first time. Memorial gardens appeared in public spaces. Citizens gathered to share stories of loved ones who had died. The cultural shift was not universal. Many traditionalists resisted fiercely, but something fundamental had changed. Marcus watched these developments from the royal quarters, preparing for his departure. His duty as sole guardian was nearly complete. The queen had recovered her strength, found her purpose again. Soon, he could return to his simple life as a botanist. He was reviewing planetary transport schedules when Commander Veloth entered the room. "The Duke is making his final move," Veloth said without preamble. "He has called for an emergency council session. He claims the Queen's reforms have weakened the Empire and demands a formal vote of no confidence." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Can he do that?" "Velastron law allows it," Veloth confirmed. "If he gains majority support, the Queen will be removed from power immediately. A new ruler will be chosen by the council." "When is the vote?" "Tomorrow morning." Marcus found Queen Ashira in the memorial garden on her private balcony. The plants had grown beautifully over the past weeks. The shimmerleaf trees were already producing their characteristic silver glow. The night flowers had begun to bloom. "You have heard," Ashira said as he approached. It was not a question. "Yes," Marcus replied. "Commander Veloth told me." The queen touched a shimmerleaf gently. "Duke Theron is not wrong about some things. My reforms have caused division. Many of our military leaders believe emotional openness makes soldiers less effective. Many governors fear it shows weakness to our rivals." "What do you believe?" Marcus asked. Ashira was quiet for a moment. "I believe that a society built on suppressing pain is a society slowly dying from within. But I also understand why they fear change. The old ways kept us strong for millennia. The old ways also kept you isolated," Marcus said. "Each person carrying their grief alone. Never sharing burdens. Never truly connecting." He gestured to the garden around them. "These plants teach us something important. They grow stronger when their roots intertwine, when they share resources and support each other. Alone, they would struggle. Together, they thrive. You always find lessons in plants," Ashira said with the faintest hint of amusement. The first time Marcus had seen her smile since her daughters died. "I am a botanist," he replied with a small smile of his own. "It is what I do." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the night flowers open their petals to catch the moonlight. "The Duke will argue that I have abandoned Velastron values," Ashira said finally. "That I have let a human corrupt our culture with alien weakness. Then we need to show the council that what I taught you was not alien at all," Marcus said, an idea forming in his mind. "We need to prove that emotional honesty and strength are not opposites. They are partners. How do we prove that in one night?" Marcus thought carefully. "We go to the archives. We find the old texts, the original writings of the first Velastron rulers, and we show that the greatest leaders of your people were those who adapted to change, not those who clung blindly to tradition. They worked through the night, searching the historical database." Lady Shimara joined them, her knowledge of ancient Velastron history proving invaluable. What they found surprised even her. The oldest records told a different story than current tradition suggested. The first Velastron monarchs had been known for their wisdom in adapting to new circumstances. One ancient queen had completely reformed the government after a catastrophic plague. Another had welcomed alien refugees and integrated their knowledge into Velastran society. Our ancestors valued adaptation, Lady Shamara said, wonder in her voice. Somehow, over the centuries, we forgot this. We began confusing rigidity with strength. As dawn broke, they had compiled a comprehensive argument, not against tradition, but for understanding what tradition truly meant. The emergency council session convened at midday. Duke Theron stood before the assembly, his presentation polished and powerful. Queen Ashira has weakened our empire, he declared. She encourages our people to dwell in grief rather than overcome it. She elevates alien customs above our own. She has named a human as her permanent royal council, giving him authority no outsider has ever held. The accusation about Marcus was new. He had not known the Queen intended to make his advisory role permanent. Under her leadership, we have become soft, the Duke continued. Our enemies watch and see weakness. Our allies question our resolve. I call for this council to remove Queen Ashira and restore traditional Velastran strength. The chamber murmured with mixed reactions. Duke Theron had support, more than Marcus had hoped. Then Queen Ashira rose to respond. She did not appear angry or defensive. She stood with quiet dignity, holding a data crystal containing their research. Duke Theron speaks of tradition, she began. Let me tell you about true Velastran tradition. She proceeded to present their findings, historical examples of Velastran leaders who had adapted, changed, and grown stronger through flexibility rather than rigidity. She quoted ancient texts that praised wisdom and compassion, alongside military might. Our greatest ancestor, Queen Valora the Wise, once said, "A tree that cannot bend will break in the storm." Ashira quoted. She understood that strength includes the ability to change when change serves the people. She turned to address the Duke directly. You claim I have abandoned our values by acknowledging grief. I say, I have honored our oldest values, honesty, adaptation, and service to our people. You claim I have weakened us by appointing a human as royal counsel. I say, Doctor, Marcus Chen has shown me that true strength is not the absence of feeling, but the courage to feel and choose action anyway. Marcus stood in the gallery, humbled by her words. The Galactic Protection Initiative has already prevented 2 terrorist attacks, Ashira continued. 27 species have signed the Cooperation Accord. Our empire is more connected to the broader galaxy than ever before. And yes, our people are learning to grieve openly, but they are also learning to support each other, to build community, to be truly strong together rather than pretending to be strong alone. She looked around the chamber. The choice before you is not between strength and weakness. It is between growth and stagnation. Between a living tradition that adapts to serve our people, and a dead tradition that serves only itself. The vote was called. This time, Marcus watched. He owed the Queen that much. When the results were announced, the margin was closer than before but still in Ashira's favor. She would remain Queen. Duke Theron accepted defeat with bitter grace, though Marcus suspected this would not be his last challenge to the throne. After the session ended, Ashira approached Marcus privately. I meant what I said about the permanent council position, she told him. If you wish to return to your research, I understand. But I hope you will stay. Not as my guardian, that duty is fulfilled, but as a bridge between human understanding and Velastran tradition. As a friend, Marcus looked at this remarkable leader who had transformed personal tragedy into galactic change, who had learned to honor her daughters by building a better future. I would be honored, he said simply. Months later, Marcus stood in the new public memorial garden on Velastra Prime. It was a beautiful space where people could honor loved ones openly, speak their names, share their stories. At the center grew 3 special trees transplanted from the Queen's private garden. A shimmer leaf for Lyra, a puzzle plant for Mira, a night flower for Sira. Queen Ashira stood beside him, watching families gather to remember those they had lost. They would have loved this, she said softly. Yes, Marcus agreed. They would have. A young Velastran child approached them, holding her mother's hand. She looked up at the Queen with wide, innocent eyes. Are those your daughter's trees? The child asked. Ashira knelt down to the child's level. Yes, Would you like to hear about them? As the queen began to tell stories of three princesses who had touched her life so briefly but so profoundly, Marcus stepped back and watched. He had not set out to change an empire. He had simply tried to help one person through the darkest moment of her life. But sometimes, he realized, the smallest acts of compassion could grow into something magnificent, like seeds planted in grief that bloomed into gardens of hope. Humanity's gift to the galaxy was not superior technology or military power. It was the simple, revolutionary understanding that feeling deeply, loving deeply, grieving deeply, caring deeply, was not weakness. It was the greatest strength of all.